Madur Vajati Shayano Yati Sarvataha Kastam Madamandaha Devam Madanyo Gyatu Maharti. So this sutra conveys that the Supreme Being possesses boundless wealth. He possesses boundless wealth. And yet he is devoid of arrogance. Now this is very important. It's a very important sutra because normally the opposite happens. We have a lot of wealth and we are filled with ignorance. So sutra says that it unites the opposite because normally even a small amount of wealth inflates the ego, as we all know. Whereas it should not be the case. Immense wealth leads to immense ignorance or immense arrogance because of that. But spirituality does not follow the logic of mathematics, does not follow this logic. The greater the wealth, the more infinite and boundless it is, the more the ego dissolves if you are spiritual. It is the other way around. The word moves in another way and the spirituality moves in another way, the opposite way. And from a psychological point of view, it can be understood as well. There was this person known as Alfred Adler, and he was a psychologist, a prominent Western psychologist. He was from Austria, and then he moved to US long time back. So Adler based his entire psychology on a very very basic thing, inferiority complex, and we all know what is inferiority complex. He argued that all human efforts stems from a sense of inferiority. He suggested that those who seek power do so because they want to compensate for an inner feeling of being nothing. And we see it all the time. Politicians, according to Adler, suffers from the worst inferiority complexes. If you know, Lenin had short legs and he had a disproportionately large upper body. So interestingly, when he would sit on a chair, his feet would not touch the ground. And this, of course, deeply troubled him. And what he did in return, so he conquered the Russia's highest throne. His feet may not have touched the ground, but they reached the seat of power. To compensate for one thing, he did another thing. Similarly, there is a speculation that Hitler was impotent and his pursuit of power was a means to compensate for this impotence. His ambitions grew so vast that he wanted to grip the entire world to prove his dominance. We all know that, what he did. So this compensatory mechanism is pretty much universal. If a person is ugly, he may try to make it up in another ways. If someone is blind, automatically his or her hearing sharpens significantly. And that is why if you would see, normally the blind excel in music because the energy of the sight transfers to the hearing. So whenever there is a deficiency in a body, the mind seeks to balance it with an opposing force. Adler further explained that ego arises from a sense of lack, sense of devoid, sense of uselessness. If someone lacks money, they become obsessed with wealth. Those deprived of love often becomes materialistic because now what they are doing is they are hoarding gold so it could replace the affection, the love. And if you really see, a truly love-filled person can never be miserly. A miser can never be truly loving. A miser holds wealth to fill that void of love. And in contrast, a person who is secure in love knows they will never be abandoned, that someone will always care for them. So they do not feel the need to hoard the wealth. And so God lacks, God lacks nothing. Hence, he is free from any inferiority complex. Paramatma has everything you can imagine, infinite, boundless. And so, Paramatma, the God, does not have inferiority complex. He is free from it. The closer one moves towards the divine, the more the ego dissolves. Because you are moving towards the infinite, what else would you need? So the paradox, and I would call it a paradox, the paradox is that the more one possesses, the less the ego. The less one has, the more the ego. So if you ask me, I would say that ego is the sign of a beggar, while egolessness is the mark of an emperor. And in this sutra, the Yam Sutra unites this contradiction, because it's a contradiction. He says, who else other than death? Who else other than death can truly know the Supreme? So you see, the death and the Supreme, the contradiction is there. So who else other than the death knows the Supreme, who is not intoxicated by his own divine opulence? Only the divine is not intoxicated by his own divine opulence. Otherwise, we are all intoxicated if we are opulent. The more opulent we are, the more intoxicated we become. Only death can reveal the divine. Only death can reveal the divine. Because as long as the ego exists, one remains separate from the ultimate reality. And that's how we are. We are full of ego. The moment the ego goes, the divine is there. It had not gone anywhere. So until the ego burns to ashes, one cannot unite with the egoless divine. To know him, one must become like the divine, egoless. Just as darkness cannot comprehend light, the darkness and light cannot be together. If the light is there, the darkness is not there. And so the ego cannot comprehend the egolessness. If the ego is there, it is there. You cannot say that I am ego and I am egoless. I was talking to somebody and he was saying that a little amount of ego is necessary. And I was surprised, what amount of ego is necessary? Is it a 10% ego and 90% egolessness? Is it a 20% ego and 80% egolessness? Or is it what? 50% ego and 50% egolessness? What does it mean? Either the ego is there or it is not there. And with these kind of perceptions, then people ask, where is God? So what are they doing? Can you really see? They are saying this so that in a way they are standing with their backs towards the sun, refusing to turn around until they have proof of its existence. And spirituality demands exactly the opposite. First turn around, first be egoless, and only then you can see the divine, you can see the sun. If you want to see the light, you have to turn towards the sun. If you want to see the divine, you have to be devoid of ego. And so this is what Yama declares. No one can truly know the divine except the death, because in death there is no ego. And Jesus also echoed the same truth. He says only those who lose themselves, only those who lose themselves will be saved. So the ego must dissolve. You have to lose yourself first, and we don't want to lose. We want to hold on to our ego. I always talk of four things, and I've talked of four things before as well. The endless compassion. You only have endless compassion when the ego is not there. You're only satisfied with the life when the ego is not there. You are a part of the solution when the ego is not there. Otherwise, you're always a part of the problem. With the ego there, the problems are always there. So the ego must dissolve like a drop of water surrendering into the ocean. The moment one is willing to let go, the drop is willing to let go. And once the drop falls into the ocean, the river falls into the ocean, it is no more a river. The ego is gone. Ego is gone. The ego of me being a different, a separate entity is gone. The ego vanishes, and with it, the underlying sense of inferiority is also gone. Because suffering arises from clinging to the impermanent. The wealth is impermanent. The jealousy is impermanent. The love is impermanent. The hate is impermanent. All the emotions that we have are impermanent. And we are always clinging to the impermanent. I want this, I want that, I want love, I want respect, I want power, I want wealth. All of these are impermanent. Everything changes, yet we resist to change. That is a problem. A young man does not want to grow old. We are so afraid to grow old. A living being does not want to die. We are so afraid. But that which is born will also perish. That which has taken birth will also die. Because we are always holding on to the transient, this causes the suffering. Just like someone sitting by a river wishing the water would stop flowing, the water will flow. We have to flow with the river. Even love is impermanent. We always seek love. Lovers promise eternal love. Yet, how can something impermanent make a permanent promise? Even the lover that is making a permanent promise is also impermanent. See the paradox. When love fades, people believe they are betrayed, and it was meant to fail. But the real cause of suffering is the illusion of permanence. We are doing this because we feel we are permanent. Human beings do not, they never accept that everything is impermanent. There is this, I've heard of this Christian sect called Quakers. I don't know if it is there now, it used to be there. So it follows an unusual practice. They do not take oaths because they believe that a changing mind cannot make an eternal promise, because in oath you are making an eternal promise. So in court, the Quakers refuse to swear on Bible, urging that how can we promise truth when we ourselves are uncertain of even the next moment, even the tomorrow. So they do not swear on the Bible. So sorrow arises from trying to fix this flowing river of life. We are always trying to fix something. I want to fix the problems of my jobs. I want to fix the problems of this world. I want to fix somebody not loving me. I want to fix this devoid in my life. I'm trying to fix all the things. We are trying to always fixing. And the only way to transcend grief is to anchor ourselves with the unchanging, eternal reality within. And why do we do so? Because that eternal reality never dies, never perishes. And that is why we do pratyahara. It never changes. Your breath will be there as long as you are there. It remains ever present. It remains there unwavering. One who realizes this truth moves beyond sorrows. The drashta is the permanent. And so you become the drashta, you become the sakshi, because sakshitva, the witness action, is permanent. Somebody who is watching, just watching. If the good is there, he is watching the good. If the bad is there, he is watching the bad. If the day is there, he is watching the day. If the night is there, he is watching the night. If the love is there, he is watching the love. If the hate is there, he is watching the hate. If the peace is there, he is watching the peace. If the disturbance is there or the war is there, he is watching the war. And always watching. Not trying to change. Everybody tries to change. And now this sutra. Nyaya matma pravasnen tathyo na medhya na bahuna shruten yamevesh vartane tenah labhya tasya yashah atma vrinvate tanuswam. The unwavering element within is the supreme Brahma, Who is the unwavering element that never changes? That unwavering element is the Supreme Brahma. And what is Supreme Brahma? The Supreme Brahma is inside of me. It is my own self. It is my own self. It is inside of me. You don't have to seek it in the mosque, in the churches, in the temples. We are always seeking that supreme reality outside. That is the problem. We are always seeking the help of a mediator to seek it, the help of a priest or help of a mullah or help of a pandit. Whereas it is sitting inside of us. It has always been there. It has never left us. So it cannot be attained just through discourses. It cannot be attained just through a huge intellect, a very fine intellect. Even if you have a very fine intellect, it cannot be attained through that. Or it cannot be attained, as the Yama says to Nachiketa, it cannot be attained through extensive listening as well. It can only be attained by the one whom it accepts. Whom it accepts. Now here we come to that grace that we always talk of. When I was talking of Yoga Sutra, I was talking of three things. The first four Ashtanga Yoga, Yam, Niyam, Asana, Pranayam, they are, you can do them. You can do Yama. You can do certain commandments. And then the Pratyahara is there. And then the Dharana, Dhyan and Samadhi is there. Dharana, Dhyan and Samadhi is the grace. You cannot do Dharana, Dhyan and Samadhi if you wanted it. Everybody wants it. I want to go into Dharana, I want to go into Dhyana, I want to go into Samadhi. Everybody is saying that. But it's a grace. So this Supreme Being has to accept you as a grace. Because for such a person, the person who is now devoid of ego, the person who is free, the Supreme reveals its true nature automatically. You do not make it do it, because if you are making it do, then you have your ego. Oh, I want to be in Dhyana. Oh, I want to be in the meditation. Oh, I want to go to Samadhi. The moment you say this, you have an ego. Your ego is saying this. You say, I am okay wherever I am, whatever I am. I completely accept everything that is given to me. My ego is not there. In that condition of mind, in that condition of egolessness, that Supreme reveals its true nature. That is what Yama is saying to Nachiketa. It is a very difficult sutra, but it's a very crucial one. And so it must be understood very properly. Neither through discourses. Yes, discourses are good to start with. You listen to me and listening is good, but if you are confined to my listening, you are not getting anything. I'm not saying it is bad, but it is not enough. It is good to understand the scriptures. I'm not saying it is bad. But understanding the scriptures, reading the good words, reading the books, or 1,000 word, Supreme cannot be attained. Because the words can be grasped. Erudition, the intellect can be accumulated. We can be full of intellect, yet we can be very stupid. The memory can be very dense. People read the 1,000 book and then they think they have become knowledgeable. Okay, maybe. The answers to some questions may be found, but no real solution can be obtained through this. And what is the real solution? The real solution is the soul remain fulfilled. The soul becomes fulfilled. And our soul remain unfulfilled even after reading so many scriptures and listening to so many words. It's a good way to start. It's a good way to prep. It is like a thirsty person being told that water is H2O comprised of hydrogen atom and oxygen atom, two hydrogen atom and one oxygen atom. Now you have known everything about the water, you know the composition of water, you know this and that, you know the hydrogen, you know the oxygen. But the mere knowledge of H2O does not and would never quench your thirst. You can write H2O on a piece of paper 1,000,000 times, but it also will not quench your thirst. You can write Ram, 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 Ram Or you can write Krishna, 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 or you can write Jesus, 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 Jesus a million times. But you do not realize the Ram, or you do not realize the Jesus, or you do not realize the Krishna through that. And people keep on doing that. People keep on filling the libraries, writing repeatedly. And if still the ignorance is abundant, even after we have done so much. So many books are there. Some people waste hours chanting the divine names, citing the divine names. What would happen if you keep on chanting? Your mind is somewhere else and the chanting is going on. It's okay to start with. I'm not saying the chanting is bad. It's okay if you want to be focused and you are chanting, but it has to also go. What will come from merely chanting or merely writing Ram or Jesus or for that matter Allah? Even a printing press can do that. Printing press can write better than you. Printing press, if you can write a million times, printing press can write it a billion times. And printing press will never attain the divine, and neither will you. The supreme cannot be attained through discourses, scriptures, intellect, or excessive listening, is what Yama is saying in this sutra. There is no method to attain it except one. And Yama makes this is very intriguing. What is intriguing? Only one way to get him. And what is that one way to get him? The one way to get him is when he accepts you. You do not accept him. You cannot go to him, but he comes to you. Look at that egolessness of the divine. He comes to you. This is the only method when you attain him. This is what Yama is saying to Nachiketa. This means, what does this mean? This means that you make yourself worthy of his acceptance. And that is what Patanjali talks of in the Ashtanga Yoga. You start with Yama. You do certain things. You fulfill certain commandments. You prepare the path. And then you walk on that path because it is up to you to walk on that path. And then once you have prepared and once you have prepped and once you have done everything, it should automatically let your ego disappear, and then he comes to you who accepts you. So you become worthy of his acceptance first. You must transform yourself in such a way that this supreme being has no choice but to accept you. He has no choice then. He will come to you. You give him no choice. This is very important. This is what is your inner transformation. This is your eligibility. It must be such that he does not disapprove of you. He does not rejection you. Rejection is not a possibility. Your purity, your innocence, your simplicity, your conduct, and your sattvic nature should be so profound that Supreme is compelled to accept you. Yama is saying to Nachiketa, in this state only it can be attained. There is no other state in which it can be attained. Reading scripture is very easy. Learning Sanskrit is very easy. It will take some time. You can learn any language. You can read all the scriptures which is there in the world. But reading those scriptures, transforming one's life is very difficult. You can read the Bible 1,000 times and yet you do not get him. He is not into the Bible. He is not into the Quran. He is not into the Gita. But if you are reading Bible, you are reading Quran, and then something is happening, some transformation is happening, that is good. And we always seek shortcuts. We recite the Bible, we have crammed the entire Bible, we have crammed the entire Gita, and we think that he will come to us. No. The correct path must be followed, enduring hardships and the trials. The journey itself becomes the transformation. Your journey becomes the transformation. The Supreme reveals itself only when he accepts you. And he has to accept you when the transformation has happened. You don't have to run after him. If you do not experience the presence of the Supreme, understand that some barrier within you is preventing his revelation. Perhaps your eyes are closed. Perhaps your heart is closed. The sun is present, yet an ignorant person remains blind to it. The word is so nice, the word is so beautiful, the sunlight is so nice, but people go to their jobs without looking at anything. The flower is blooming, the rivers are flowing, the mountains are so towering, yet people are unaware of them. So, no amount of discourse on sunlight or on the beauty of this word will help a blind person see. He remains blind. Even with the eyes, some people are blind. So, this eyes must shut open. It must open. It should not be closed. All meditative practices are designed to open one's inner eye, inner being. Discourse and scriptures are intellectual. It's good to start with. Intellectual. Meditation is experiential. Always remember that. You can listen to me for ages, for years, for centuries, and yet you never found that Supreme. And your meditation can do it in a very little time. Meditation transforms you because it requires action. Listening can be an entertainment. Just as some people enjoy watching movies or listening to radio, some people enjoy listening to words. Wise people put those words into action. Wise beings awaken, thirst for the truth. What is the truth? Who am I? They go inside of themselves, and that's how they find the truth. If you merely enjoy the feeling of thirst without taking the ocean, then you remain stuck. It's okay to start with, it's okay to read the scriptures. I'm not saying it is not okay. It's okay to read the Bible. It's okay to read the Quran, to read the Gita. It is completely okay. I'm not against it, but I'm against if it only becomes the reading. So awakening that thirst, once you have read, is the first step. The journey towards that ocean, towards that infinite, have to be undertaken. And so Yama further says the Supreme cannot be attained by a person who has not abandoned the evil conduct. No matter how refined one's intellectual or profound one's reasoning, without ethical conduct, the Supreme cannot be realized. It cannot be attained by one who is restless or the one who lacks control over the mind and the senses. Conduct, and now Yama is saying, what is a conduct? Conduct is a state of wakefulness. When you have awakened, that is your conduct. Evil actions arise from unconsciousness. Always remember that. We are always trying to tell the drunkard to stop harming others. The problem is not the person, the problem is something he is drinking. So to stop him is futile. He won't comprehend because he is drunk. The real solution is to make him stop drinking. Similarly, one's unconsciousness must be broken, and pratyahara is a way to do that. Unconsciousness has to go, and we are always unconscious. Even when we are talking, we are unconscious. Even when we are eating, we are unconscious. If we like the food, if the taste is good, we eat more. If the taste is bad, we eat less. Our taste is eating it. And where the taste is coming from, it is coming from the mind. The mind eats the food. Our body doesn't eat it. Had the body been eating the feed, the body says, if you're conscious, the body will tell you exactly where to stop. You cannot eat a morsel more if you are conscious. And so you remain always healthy. But we keep on eating more. We keep on eating the useless thing. The moment you see the food, if you are conscious, you will know that this food should it be eaten or it should be not eaten. Similarly, if you are conscious, you can feel the anger comes up, and when you are watching the anger, it will go on its own. The jealousy will go on its own. The rest